Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Pamela Thomas. This morning, we have a special speaker, Linda Johnson, one of our share catalogers, and she's going to be talking about a stitch in time, basic or budget book repair. And she will take your questions at the end, and I will allow people to unmute themselves at the end. So you can ask your question verbally if you want to, or you can just post your questions in the chat. Take it away, Linda.
Thank you. I want to thank Dr. Pamela Thomas and the CMC catalogers for allowing me to make this presentation today. And I do want to make a disclosure. I am not an archivist. The repair recommendations in this presentation are from my personal experience working in a public library with materials that are meant for circulation. If you have a rare or valuable material, please consult with a trained archivist. A stitch in time saves 9. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We have all heard these sayings, and they certainly apply to book repairs. Being alert to the condition of your collection can extend the life, save money for your library, and provide access to your patrons. We're going to start with selecting books. And what does selecting books have to do with book repairs? Well, unfortunately, all books are not made equal. Some are just not up for the task of being heavily circulated. Think of it this way. If you're planning to go on a hike, which pair of shoes would you choose? I love everything pink, but I would choose the hiking boots over the flimsy foam flip-flops. Now, which pair of hiking boots I would choose would depend on my budget. The same goes for circulating books. Circulating books go on long treks and need to be able to withstand the journey. So choose the best binding that your library can afford. The sturdier the binding, the longer the book will last, and a good binding makes for easier repairs when it does wear. Another thing you need to do is communicate which bindings stand up and which don't. In a smaller library, this is a pretty easy task, but in a larger library, you will need to be more deliberate in communicating. Depending on your library's departmental structure, it could work like this. Technical services inform circulation staff to be alert for damaged or repairs and to send them before the item gets too bad. Technical services and circulation would let collection development know when a trend in certain bindings falling apart occurs. And then collection development should let tech service know that there is no need to repair that crumbling 1975 copy of a Reader's Digest condensed book. You'll also want to protect your books. For hardcovers, we see here, this is called Dimco Paper Fold. There are numerous methods and products that you can use, but this is the one that I was familiar with. Your budget will factor into the decisions of which one you use. Once again, the best that you can afford. You may also decide to reinforce the corners or the spine before you wrap the book. This can be done with regular binding tape or with specially pre-cut tape. I just want to say something that you will see a lot of pictures and products for Dimco, not because I'm endorsing them, but because these are the products that I'm familiar with. You should find a supplier or suppliers that work for your library. If you wrap a lot of books and you have the space and you use the roll type wrap, your technical services staff will thank you for a dispenser like this. It makes your life so much easier. For paperback books, I use the Dimco Instafoil. It is a clear sticky back contact paper. And from my experience, it works best on new books. If you have donated books that have been handled, you have dust and oils from the hands, and it makes the product not stick as well. I've seen some other libraries that have a more rigid clear cover called Capco, and that is really nice too, once again, if your library can afford it. So you can only go so far in protecting your books. As much as we would love to send them out wrapped in bubble wrap, they are meant to be used, and we can only hope not abused. Some of the supplies that I've used have been Norbond adhesive from Dimco. And you don't have to use Norbond. You can search for a pH neutral PVA adhesive. I liked using Filmoplast. It is a mending tape for pages, and it doesn't dry out or turn yellow. And it's almost invisible when you put it on. It's for cuts or tears in pages, not to hold the pages in. You also need binding tape, which is you've probably all seen the multicolored tape that you can use for reinforcing the spine. There's a single stitch binding tape, double stitch binding tape, wax paper, and Goo Gone. That seems like a strange recommendation, and it can be greasy, and you should use it sparingly, not on paper, only on slick covers. Spray it on the towel, not the item. It's great for replacing those crusty old call labels. And it's also great for cleaning the blades of scissors that have gotten sticky from cutting tape or the sticky wrap. I'm going to call these items here the dirty half dozen. And I'm going to say no, nope, yet, 9, put the duct tape down and walk away. These supplies that are available on every desk or in every house are not the supplies you should be using to repair your books. In the end, they will do more harm than good. One of the biggest reasons not to use these materials is that they are not acid-free, and over time that acid can damage your books. In addition, the glues dry hard, and books are not static objects. They are meant to move. The duct tape, it may have 1,000 uses, but book repair is not one of them. So for tools, I would recommend that you have good scissors. And like with a pair of sewing scissors, don't use to cut anything else but book wrap. If using the laminate wrap for paperbacks and the jacket wrap for the hardcover, have a pair of scissors for each. That makes it a lot easier to keep it clean. You'll want heavy-duty rubber bands, a book press, or clamps and bricks. We'll talk about those later. Bone folders, glue brushes, a small container with lid for your glue, an X-Acto knife, mending sticks, and label peelers. And you can see in the picture here, I've got 2 pictures of label peelers. The one with the metal blade is my favorite, and you can find that for $8 at Amazon. The all plastic one, you can actually find that at a dollar store for about $1.25. One thing you want to make sure you do is take care of your tools. Wash the brushes as soon as you're finished. If the glue dries on them, it will not come off. And that is money down the drain when you have to throw those things away. And also that metal bladed peeler comes in handy if you do crafts at home. I've used it for stuff at home. Also want to say to improvise your tools. And I just want to pause to say thank you to Loretta Broomfield, Director, and Danielle Cornelius, Coordinator of Technical Services at Marion Carnegie Library, for letting me visit and take pictures of their equipment. The picture on the left is a book press. It holds pressure on a stack of books as the glue dries. It is ancient, but it still works. If you don't have one, try wrapping a couple of bricks in binding tape and placing those on top of the books. And that idea came from Cher's own Dina Porter, and they still use it at Marion Carnegie Library. Glue brushes, you don't have to buy expensive ones from a library supply store. You can check your local craft store for a less expensive, but still decent quality brush. Clamps from the hardware store. can be used to apply pressure as glue is drying or to hold a book in place as you are working with it. The backing from the laminate book wrap for paperbacks is wax paper on one side. Fold used pieces in half, wax side out, and you'll never have to spend money on wax paper. Dimco has mending sticks. They're pretty simple. They're just little tiny dowel rods. They're about 6 inches and cost about $3.99 for a pack of 50. But sometimes those just aren't long enough to reach into a tall book. So go to your local discount store and pick up a pack of bamboo barbecue skewers. Most of those are 12 inches long, so that will allow you to do a much larger book. In the upcoming videos, we will hear terms for parts of the book, and I just wanted to give you a moment to look at a basic diagram. The stack of pages all together is called a text block. The hinge is where the text block meets the cover. You have end papers pasted down on the cover and loose or free that are with the text blocks. And then obviously corners, and then at the top it's called the headband. This little guy looked like an angry book, so I gave him some angry eyes. The part that looks like his open mouth is called the tube. When doing repairs, avoid getting glue in this area as it will not allow the book to open properly. The furrow in his brow is called the gutter. So we've talked about selecting sturdy bindings, protecting your books, your supplies. You've now got some books that have been a popular titles. They've circulated frequently and have now seen better days. Let's go on to repairs. I won't be able to cover every situation that will arise for repairs because patrons have produced some truly unique ways to damage books, but I will hit the highlights for you. One thing to remember before you start trying to repair circulating books, I would suggest you find a few donated books, and I know most libraries have those in spades, that you practice on those first before you practice on your books that you want to keep. Less is more when it comes to glue. If you use too much glue, when you close the book and weight or rubber band it, the glue will ooze out. It not only makes a mess, but it can glue pages together. The next 5 slides are videos from Dimco demonstrating repairs. The technique in the first video is for use when the page is torn and has overlapping edges to allow the glue to adhere. If the page is cut, you will need a good quality acid-free mending tape like the Filmoplast. Cut the tape about a ½ inch longer than the tear and fold it over the edge of the page. You never want to trim the tape flush with the edge of the page because that will catch and make it easy to tear again. So let's go on to the video.
Overlapping or ragged fiber edges should be repaired with more bonded plastic adhesive. Just applies generally more bonded adhesive. The bond holder, wax paper, and rubber bands. Place waxed paper beneath the repair blade. Use a metal stick dipped in Norlon and lightly and evenly roll along the torn edge. Fit the edges together and blot off excess adhesive with some cheesecloth. Place a second sheet of wax paper on top of the repair and gently smooth with a bone folder. Close and secure the book with rubber bands or weights and let dry for 24 hours.
Okay, our next video is we'll show you how to tip in a torn out page. And the first time I saw this done, I thought surely that's not going to stay, but it really does. So let's watch the video. Oh. Sorry about that. Well, my video for tipping in a page does not seem to want to work today. So you saw how they rolled a little bead of glue along the edge of that tear. What you do is you roll a bead of glue along the edge of the page that has come out, and you seat it into the gutter. And then you put a wax piece of paper on either side and close it, and it works really good. Let's make sure that my other videos work. This one is repairing a loose hinge cover. And this one simple repair, if done when it is first noticed that the hinge is loose, will save you both time and money. Please notice that the glue is only applied in the hinge, not the tube.
From the inside of the cover boards. The sweeper is the cloth material that holds the text block to the cover. Repair the sign of damage to prevent it from worse. You will need downtown a mending stick, a bone folder, and some rubber bands or a book. To work the Norabot into the area which is more loose. Work from each end to ensure that the adhesive reaches the entire area. Be careful not to get adhesive. The tube of the area which is fine, the text block and the cover separate, for the book to open. Smooth the end sheet with the bone folder and close the book. Apply the rubber bands and set it aside to dry for driver speed.
All right, the next video we're going to show is what happens when you don't repair that loose hinge, and it takes more time and effort. So you always want to catch it before it gets to this point. This is repairing a broken hinge.
Linda, this is Pam.
Yes.
It's really hard for us to hear these. Did you remember to do that? Whatever that little thing is, you have to check the box.
Oh, no, I did not. I am so sorry, Pam.
That's okay.
Can you not hear it at all?
You have to really turn up the volume and it's still hard to hear.
I would have to stop sharing and share again. Would you like me to do that?
Yeah, go ahead. It doesn't take that long.
Okay. I apologize, everybody.
Nope. Just remember where you're at. You're at loose hinge.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see how this goes.
Caused by the super,
Yes.
loose from the inside of the cover boards. The super is the cloth material that holds the text block to the cover. Repair at the first sign of damage to prevent it from getting worse. You will need Demco Norbond adhesive, a mending stick, a bone folder, and some rubber bands or a book weight. Use the mending stick to work the Norbond into the area which is torn loose. Work from each end to ensure that the adhesive reaches the entire area. Be careful not to get adhesive into the tube of the book, the area of the spine where the text block and the cover separate in order for the book to open. Smooth the end sheet with a bone folder and close the book. Apply the rubber bands and set it aside to dry for 24 hours.
Okay, now we're going to go to broken hinge.
When a book's hinge breaks, the super will tear, and one cover will pull completely away from the text block. Repair the broken hinge by using single-stitched binder tape. You will need Demco Norabond adhesive, a paste brush, waxed paper, single-stitched binder tape, scissors, a bone folder, cheesecloth, and rubber bands. If the hinge is not fully broken, carefully cut it open and trim any excess material in the hinge and spine area. Secure all loose material in the spine and inside of the cover with Norabond. Be certain that the end sheet is securely attached to the inside of the cover. Cut the single-stitch binder tape to match the length of the text block. Brush Norabond on the shiny part of one side of the tape. Apply the tape around the edge of the text block with one tab attached to the spine and one tab attached to the front or back page of the text block. Smooth the tape with a bone folder. Blot any excess adhesive, leave the cover of the book open, and set the book aside to dry. After the first part of the repair has dried, insert a strip of wax paper between the two tabs in the spine. Place another sheet of wax paper on top of the text block. Brush Norabond onto the exposed tabs of the tape. Press the cover into position along the row of stitches. Use a bone folder to smooth one tab of the tape to the inside of the cover. Close the book and firmly run the edge of the bone folder along the outside of the spine to attach the fourth tab to the inside of the tube. Secure with the rubber bands and set the book aside to dry for 24 hours. The repaired book will have two tabs of the binder tape visible when the cover is opened and two tabs attached to the inside of the tube. Occasionally, the flyleaf will remain attached to the cover rather than the text block. When this happens, it is essential that you remove the flyleaf and set it aside before proceeding with this repair. After the hinge is repaired, you should use a piece of adhesive-backed cloth tape to reattach the flyleaf into the book.
Our next video is reinforcing a worn hinge.
When a book's hinge breaks, the super will tear, and one cover will pull completely away from the text block. Repair the broken hinge by using single-stitched binder tape. You will need Demco Norabond adhesive.
Sorry about that.
If the end paper is torn, but the super still intact, reinforce the hinge with adhesive-backed binder tape secured with Norabond adhesive. You will need Demco Norabond adhesive, adhesive-backed binder tape, a paste brush, a bone folder, waxed paper, and rubber bands. Cut the binder tape to match the height of the text block. Brush Norabond on the shiny side of the adhesive-backed binder tape. Fold the dry side of the tape together along the perforations and use the bone folder to press it deep into the hinge area of the book. Smooth the tape with the bone folder. Insert a sheet of wax paper between the cover and the flyleaf and close the book. Secure with rubber bands and let dry for 24 hours.
Okay. We've got a few more topics to cover, and one of them is smelly books. One young lady that I worked with, she was always happy when the new books were released. She would open them up and sniff them and proclaiming her love of that new book smell. Well, in a public library, it's very short time when books smell good. So what do you do when a stack is returned smelling like they spent the night in a cheap tavern? Probably not the official way to do it, but what we did was we placed a few sheets of scented dryer sheets in between the pages and let it set for a few days, and that actually did help get rid of the smell. The official way is to place it inside a sealed container, like a Tupperware type container, with baking soda or activated charcoal inside. You don't cover the book, you just place it in there with that and it absorbs the smell. Every librarian's worst nightmare is wet books. I've had a little bit of experience when we had an air conditioner leak at the public library and it caused a mess. We used a fan method to dry them, but we couldn't save them all. Some of them just had to be thrown away. Some suggestions from biblio.com on methods that you can use to salvage wet books. Some of them are time intensive, like placing absorbent sheets between each page and wrapping the book in the towel. That would be a lot to do if you had a large collection or a lot of books. Air circulation, like we did, you can use fans or hair dryers, but it also can warp them. So you need to be careful with that. If it's sunny outside, you can place the books in the sunlight. That sun exposure can actually help kill any mold spores, but it also can cause damage. So just be careful you don't leave them over an hour. If you have a damp book, you can completely dry it by sprinkling cornstarch between the pages and letting it set in a plastic bag or box. And then after a few hours, you can wipe off the excess. And we all know what wet books lead to: mold. My experience with moldy books could be summed up as, if in doubt, throw it out. It can be a nightmare to deal with. So once again, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And if you are in one of those glorious old library buildings that has issues with dampness, you should consider investing in dehumidifiers. So if you do discover mold or mildew, you need to remove them from your collection and either treat them or discard them. You should be aware that it can be a health hazard, if you especially if you have people with allergies. So if you're going to work with them, you should probably wear protective gear, mask, gloves, maybe even eye protection. If your item is rare or historically important or a sentimental favorite in your personal collection, it may be worth it to you to contact a professional archivist to preserve or restore it. The Association for Library Collections and Technical Services, a division of the ALA, has great information on dealing with mold and collection preservation. And if you find yourself in need of archivist, a place to start is the American Society of Archivists, and this link will take you to their directory of archival consultants. And unfortunately, to me, some things just can't be repaired. The following situations should automatically be disposed of: cat urine, bodily fluids, insect infestation, basically anything that could be a health hazard to staff or other patrons. Heavily stained, for example, salsa, motor oil, true stories. Missing pages, missing covers, heavily marked in, as in a toddler with a marker. The first 5 in this, they would need to be disposed of because they're potentially hazardous. If it's just missing pages or covers or marked in, you can recycle those. Some of the resources that you can go to find videos for book repair, and it's a great way to practice. DIMCO, some of the videos that I showed today, the ALCTS, Association for Library Collections and Technical Services, biblio.com, and if you search YouTube for book repair, there's all kinds of individuals and universities that have videos that show you how to do book repair. Some suppliers, if you're looking for them: DIMCO, Brodart, Library Store, Amazon, and remember, even your neighborhood hardware or discount store. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and sorry for the technical glitch. On the call with me are Dr. Pamela Thomas, Bibliographic Grant Manager, Barbara Scobie and Eric McKinney, CMC Catalogers, Kat Anderberg, metadata cataloger, and Blake Walter, Katie Roberts, and Andrea Joysta, special project catalogers. We will be happy to answer questions for you.
Thanks, Linda. Give me a second and I will allow people to unmute themselves. Okay, you should be able to unmute yourself if you want to ask Linda a question. So far, we just have a couple comments from Blake. One of my discoveries when dealing with in-house repairs was Scotch 600 light duty packaging tape, and he gives a link there. It was one of the few readily available commercial brands that use acrylic-based adhesive that will not yellow or turn brittle. Scotch 600 was my go-to brand for attaching dust jackets to hardbacks and simple hinge repairs. And then he's got another comment. Another useful product for weak hinges, not completely torn, was Tyvek tape. He also has a link for that. One library I worked in used Tyvek tape preventively to reinforce hinges on new books as they were first processed. Okay, our first question is from Gray. Graphic novels, what's the best thing to do to address the really poor binding they seem to have?
I dealt with a lot of graphic novels when I was in technical services and when I worked with the young adults, and they are difficult. The worst ones are the ones they call the omnibus, where they collect, I don't know, 5 to 10 individual books into one, and the binding is so thick, maybe 4 inches thick. There's no way that that's going to stay put together. And that's one of the things that we stopped purchasing because it fell apart. We did the Vistafoil wrap, that clear contact paper type of wrap on the outside. It did help protect it. They are still prone to losing their pages, but that tipping in of a page is a good way to get them to stick. And we kind of just accepted that they're popular, they're going to get used, the kids love them, and even adults. And they're not the most ideal binding, but that's what they come in. So if you're going to collect that, you kind of got to just accept that a little bit.
Okay, and we've got a question from Arlana. Do you ever address the tunnel headband or just discard?
I'm not sure I understood the question.
Arlana, can you elaborate on that? And then Gray has a follow-up about the graphic novels. Does stitching seem to help hold the actual book inside the floppy covers?
The paper pages. Yes, that, like I said, that's just one of the things. They're not one of those items that is, they're not library bound, and they're made of that kind of pulp paper. So they're really not one of the things that's made to heavily circulate. Tipping in the page, which is the video that didn't work. If you Google that or look it up on YouTube, you can see how they tip in a page, and that will help if you have some individual pages that come loose. But as far as protecting them, they are one of the more difficult ones.
And Martha just says thanks. Yeah, I don't know if you've come across like some like thinner paperbacks that are just stapled together.
Yes.
Those are not intended for a library collection.
A lot of times local history type things, we would end up with those.
Yeah,
kind of
maybe 2 people could look at it and then it just starts falling apart. Okay, Arlana says, on some books there is a pattern thread headband. When the spine separates from the tunnel, often the headband flops. How do you reattach it?
I wouldn't reattach that headband because that would make it easy. For me, it was easier just to remove it than to keep it, because then I would risk getting glue in that tube.
Right.
So I would just if it's flopping around and hanging on by a thread, just trim it off.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? You can put them in the chat or you can unmute yourself. And then Blake says to Gray, I agree with Linda that books with cheap bindings like graphic novels are sometimes more easily replaced once they start to come apart rather than repair. If you have the budget, a commercial binder can replace the original paperback binding with what is effectively a hardcover library binding. This is only affordable though if you were doing commercial binding in large numbers, such as 50 plus per month. That's good to know. We've got one last online with the CMC for this fiscal year, and that's next month, May 11th at 10 a.m. Treasure Troves of the Past, digging into cataloging local history. So hopefully you will join us for that, and you can register for that in L2. We can still take some suggested topics for FY 2024 or online with the CMC webinars, but we have them mostly fleshed out. But if there's a hot topic you would like us to cover August of this year through May of next year, please let us know as soon as possible. And if you missed my spiel at the beginning, it's so helpful if you rename yourself with your first and last name so that we can reconcile the Zoom and L2 rosters. Because again, if I logged in as Queen of Cataloging, that sadly does not show up on the L2 roster because that's not my name in L2. So Rhonda, sorry, says, thank you for this. Took me back to working in my first library and watching our book repair guru at work. Yes, and I think definitely some people are so much better at book repair than I know I am. Warren Township Public Library, how do I change to my name instead of my library name? If you go to participants and find your name, there should be the ellipsis, the 3 dots. If you click on that, rename should be a choice and you can change your name that way. Yep, and Mary Cornell says you can right click on your name and fix it that way. And then VMM King, I have no idea what I am logged in as. Okay. Well, probably VMM King. Yep. So you would go all the way to the bottom of the participants. You are the second from the last, VMM King. And now you were the last because Warrenville changed their names. Okay, does anybody else have any other questions? Oh, and Angela says, sorry, I don't think my question was answered. Sorry, Angela, let me go back up. I must have missed it. Let me go up. Oh, so Angela says, back on graphic novels, we constantly have hardback graphic novels with glossy pages that have loose signatures that have been stitched into the binding, and tipping in the pages isn't really an option without ripping out the stitching that's holding in the signature and potentially destabilizing other signatures. Any suggestions?
Goodness. I know what she's talking about, and yes, you could potentially try some tape to tape the page in, but then that starts the whole cascade of it pulls on the next page and it pulls that one off, and that you end up with a wad of tape in the hinge, and the book doesn't even want to close good. So those are tough. Graphic novels just were not my favorite to deal with. Give me a good old hardback anytime. But yeah, that was tough. I don't have a good suggestion for that one other than avoid buying those. Maybe that may be one of the ones you go, this isn't worth it for us.
Orlando, will we be able to have a copy of the webinar? Yes, sorry, I forgot to mention that. So yes, we always record these. One of our IT people puts it on YouTube for us. So the link to the recording probably will not be available until next week because I'm going to be at Reaching Forward South tomorrow. But I will send out an email to everybody registered in L2 and send you that link to the recording. So hopefully that will be helpful. Judith says, I would like a copy of the webinar hints to add to my manual. So right now in L2, we've got the slides uploaded without the notes. And then after the webinar, I'll upload the slides with the notes. So you should be able to copy and paste from that, Judith, because right now they're in a PDF form. So let me know if that's not helpful. Arlena says, thank you. Yes, and if any of you are going to be at Reaching Forward South, please stop by the CMC booth and say hello. So Eric, Barb, and I will be there. Does anybody else have any questions? Or stories they want to share of stinky things. Geraldine says, I've been really impressed with Capco preservation products. When COVID hit, we began covering all paperbacks with laminate, and I quickly became overwhelmed. We then discovered that EBSCO would cover the books for minimal cost using the very nice Capco covers that I thought were cost prohibitive. I also use their easy bind tape in both glossy and matte finish. Very nice to work with. Great. Yeah, and I think Baker and Taylor also will do that. I know when I worked at Illinois Central College, we used the Capco covers and they are great. Just they also tend to have really sharp corners unless if they've changed that. So you just kind of have to be careful of that. Tina says, appreciate these great tips. Will change doing some of what I've been doing. Okay. And if anybody has any tips that they want to share, please do so either in the chat or you can unmute yourself and share that with us. Grace says, Demco and Library Store both have those as well as archival quality stuff. I used to work for TLS. Okay, cool. Yeah, the Library Store is a great resource. Okay, nobody else has any questions or comments? Linda says, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna stop the recording.